Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first Hiire Talks. This is not an interview, as you can see. I'm here with Ricardo Carvalho. It's a pleasure to be here with him. But before I present Ricardo and before we go there, let me introduce the podcast since this is the first one. This is the first Hiire Talks. So welcome everyone that is on that side. In this live session, we will learn more in an informal and relaxed way about how decision makers and C-levels make decisions before they become a C-level and after they become a C-level. And today we'll talk about working abroad and digital transformation. So it's two big topics, completely different. But in the end of the day, to create a good digital transformation, it's very nice that you have an experience abroad and that you can bring that experience and those tips. So I hope this topic are interesting for you. As I told you, today I have Ricardo Carvalho, the Chief Digital Officer of Secil. Ricardo has been an expert on this field, helping companies doing this type of process on the last 20 years. And today he's working at Secil, one of our biggest clients at Hiire. Very, very funny story about how me and Ricardo met. So we were in a recruitment process in our previous life. So Ricardo entered in a recruitment process. That process didn't move forward for Ricardo, but we still become friends and we developed a relationship since then. If we have a recruiter on that side, you know that sometimes you don't hire the candidates, but that candidate can bring you much more than the hire that you want to make. So I think this story is also interesting for the people on that side because that was one of the stories where network really creates an impact. So Ricardo, let's go to you. That's why I invite you here. Thanks a lot also for accepting to be my first guest in this live. So very early in your career, you decide to move abroad. Today, we are talking a lot about this. If people, when they finish the university, if they should stay or if they should leave. You worked in Spain, you worked in the Netherlands, and for big companies like Shell. Let me start with the first big questions. What made you to want to invest your career abroad and why you went abroad so early in your career?
First of all, before going to your question, it's a great pleasure for me to be the first invitee to your new podcast. Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to hearing and watching your next few sessions with other invitees. Why did I leave Portugal? So I left about a year and a half, 2 years after I did my degree in the university here in Lisbon. The reason, so I left quite a long time ago. So it was back in 2000, so 23 years ago, kind of makes me feel old. But the reason that I went to the UK at that time, so my first exit was to London. I started working there, was I really wanted to start my career in the digital area and more specifically at the time on the user experience, usability area. And in Portugal, there were not many opportunities for that. I mean, hell, Silicon Valley wasn't even heard of. London was really the big boom in terms of the web and before the dot-com boom crash and all of that. So that was the place where things were happening. And that's why I went there. I went there because I wanted to do a different career of what was offered to me here in Portugal.
So basically you didn't find what you were looking for in Portugal and you decided to move abroad. And what do you think now looking back, what was the biggest advantage that you had and the biggest disadvantage that you had on making that move so early on?
So I don't think it was early. Yeah, many people go to study abroad. They don't even do the studies here in Portugal. So I don't think it was too early, but I think the advantages were, I mean, besides the salary, which obviously was higher when I moved to London, but that wasn't really the most important thing at the time. It was the opportunity of doing something different, of living different experiences. London was very, very, very different from Lisbon 23 years ago. It still is, but less so now. Lisbon is becoming a lot more cosmopolitan and a lot more developed, but back then it wasn't like that. And so different experiences, different opportunities as well. The opportunity level back then outside of Portugal, the opportunities were much higher. What are the disadvantages? I mean, they're obvious. I mean, you go abroad, so you're further away from your family. And you're missing out on some things which are really pleasant here in Portugal. The good weather, the food, the lifestyle. I mean, it's not the same in Northern Europe. So, yeah, those are the disadvantages.
Yeah. I feel the pain. Since I also work in the Netherlands, I think we Portuguese we always miss the weather, the wine, the foods, but also our family. Even though that's right now it's like 3 hours you are in London, 3 hours you are in the Netherlands, so it's something
Yep.
quite easy to overcome. So, do you regret your decision, or you're confident that was the right one?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I cherish my decision. I think it was the best thing that I could do at the time. I think today is a bit different than it was back then. I think also it's different when you get out of Portugal to Europe or to another continent. The difficulties
Mhm.
that I've mentioned, if you're in another continent, are a whole different level. Because as much as we think the other European countries are different from Portugal, we're all European. Once you start spending a lot of time outside of Portugal and Europe, you understand that the EU has really made a big difference. When we are outside of Europe, we do feel like Europeans. We have a lot of
Mhm.
commonalities even between our different cultures. So it's a lot easier to get out of Portugal and stay in Europe than it is to go to Africa, Asia, or even the US.
No, I think that's a very good point because I already brought people from Brazil, from India, from Nigeria, and I think the impact is much bigger for them when they come to
Yeah.
Europe. And if we come from Portugal to the Netherlands or to UK, it's like a friendly environment, close to
Yeah.
home, and that's much easier to adapt. So I think we are very lucky on that sense that the European Union exists and works very well because you don't need to take care of a visa, documents, etc. That's so easy to do. Cool. So let's go to Shell because I'm very curious about your experience there. So you stay at Shell for 11 years. It's a very large company. So what did you learn working for such a large organization?
I mean, large organizations by themselves, but obviously Shell in particular, are typically great schools. You learn a lot when you go into such an organization. Um, I would say even that they're regularly better than the top universities because you learn whilst you're doing it. So it's a great experience because you are working with loads of really bright people, much brighter than I was, very diverse. In Shell, I had people working there for every corner of the globe. So you can learn a lot. In such an organization, you really have the opportunity of learning a lot. So I think that's the largest advantage of going into such company and in Shell in particular. It's the experiences that you are exposed. You don't start and finish doing the same job. You rotate jobs whilst you're there. You have opportunities of growing in the company and with different skills. You are taught not only skills around technical stuff that you are working with, but also non-technical. How to interview people, how to do a negotiation. You have all kinds of training, both in the job and out of the job. So the learning experience is incredible in a company like Shell.
Okay, nice. And what do you think that was like the most important thing that you did to stay 11 years in the same company, but continue to grow on that journey?
Obviously, I don't think in terms of being 11 years and not being bored doing the same thing, I don't think that's my strength. It is how the company works. The company works like you change jobs every 3 to 4 years, sometimes every 2 years. You have the opportunity to do so. You have the opportunity to guide your career throughout the company. The company also, because it's global and it's very large, has all kinds of different jobs. So you do have kind of a choice of where you want to take your career in different areas. And I think I was also lucky then when I got into Shell, digital was still overall in the market very immature. So as digital matured and the importance grew, my career also evolved within the company as digital was also becoming more important for the company. So that was kind of a luck in terms of timing, and the opportunities were there for me to develop my digital career within a global company and industrial company like Shell.
Great. And why did you decide to come back?
When I decided to come back, so I came back 5 years ago or something. Basically, why did I come back? Look, I was traveling way too much. My role in Shell was global, so that meant that I still remember once we had to basically report how many days per year we were abroad. And I remember one year, one of the last years, and I reported 220 days abroad. So as you can imagine, my wife wasn't too happy with that because she was there with me. She was also working for Shell, but she was there with me in the Netherlands at the time. And we wanted to have children, and my wife didn't want to have children abroad. She wanted to raise the family here back home. And on the other hand, she also wanted to pursue her career in Portugal. She had a good opportunity. She wanted to follow up in Portugal. And basically, it was my turn to compromise. She had followed me throughout my career. It was my turn to compromise. And to be honest, when I reached my 10th anniversary in Shell, I thought, is this what I want for my whole career, to stay in the same company until the end? Or do I want to do something different? If I want to do something different, this is kind of the time to do something different. So it was a mix of personal reasons and professional ones of wanting to experience a different company, because I was there for a while. And we've decided to come back.
And I think sometimes those decisions are not only ours, and especially when you're trying to build a family together, you need to compromise on some points. So it's very nice that you share that with our audience, because sometimes we need to compromise, and sometimes we compromise for the better. And I think that's very important to build something and come back to your country with a lot of knowledge. So if anything, when we were meeting each other, you had some challenge on working for a Portuguese company again. But in the end of the day, you are in a very big Portuguese company. So can you tell us why did you decide to choose Secil to continue your career here?
So when I came back, I still worked for different international companies, being based here in Portugal, but traveling still quite a bit. I mean, Portugal is renowned for being economically very close-knit network. So if people don't know you within that network, it's difficult for you to get in. And no one knows me. I was outside of Portugal since 20 or so years. So I was always very skeptical that I would be able to work for a Portuguese company. But the fact was that I was headhunted for the Secil opportunity. I was a bit skeptical at first. I knew the company, obviously, but it's a big industrial traditional company, and I didn't know anyone there. So I was a bit skeptical at first. But what I've experienced during the interviews was the opposite of what I was expecting. I met the senior leadership, which changed my mind and my preconceptions. They were ambitious. They had a clear vision. They wanted to do something special in terms of digital transformation. On the other hand, I do love big, heavy industrial companies. I do. It's my kind of thing. And the challenges that digital transformation brings to those type of companies, which are different. There's a lot of similarities with other business, but there are also the very crucial differences. And I like those. I like those challenges. So I'm passionate by the industry. I really like the leadership and the people that I met when I was interviewing. So I decided to give it a go.
Nice. It's a very good thought process, because I think especially people that come from abroad always come with that judgment that, probably I won't work for a Portuguese company. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of good Portuguese companies doing something really interesting in Portugal, because usually those companies working in international markets. So you ending up to give back to your country. And I think that's quite interesting. And now entering a bit on the topic of digital transformation, that I think it's my favorite for our chat today, is first of all, if you can explain for the people that never heard about this term. I think everyone already heard about this term, but I think not everyone knows what digital transformation is, or we use it a lot as a buzzword. Can you give us your overview what digital transformation really is in your opinion?
I will give you my opinion, because it's a buzzword, like you've described it, and there's many different descriptions, and many different people think about it differently. I like to put things simply. Okay, so for me, digital transformation is how we empower the worker of the future to solve its own problems with digital technology and artificial intelligence. That's it. How does the company look like if they are successful doing digital transformation? Now, let me just state one thing that for the people that are in the area is obvious. Digital transformation is hard, and most companies right now are failing in it. But it's simply they're failing in it. Okay, There's many different studies about it, and you will find that you find figures between 70 and 90% of companies cannot do digital transformation beyond 1 or 2 pilots. Okay, and that's not digital transformation. That's just testing things. Now, what it means, if we look at a company that is doing well in digital transformation, what you will find is a company that knows the current state of the business in real time throughout the different areas of the business. What does this mean? It means that, for instance, if I'm in finance, I know in real time what's the state of the business in my operations side of things. And the other way around, if I'm in a factory, I know in a real time how is the business doing financially. In other areas, the same thing. In human resources, in sales, in procurement, and all of those different areas of the company. A company that can do this is already one step ahead. Most companies cannot do what I've just mentioned. They can do that in spots, but not holistically across the company. Now, once you do that, it opens up some opportunities for you to know the future state of the business, also from sector to sector within the business, by using data and machine learning to find optimized scenarios of operation and decision making. And once you have those, then you can use AI, you can use artificial intelligence to find the best solutions or avenues of action. And if you can do these two things, knowing how your company is doing in real time, having data to be able to do that, and then using machine learning and artificial intelligence to optimize your decision making, your execution, empowering your frontline workers and your leadership, and being able to predict and having prediction models to assess what are the best decisions for you to do in the company. If you can do these two things, you're well ahead in terms of digital transformation.
Why do you think that the companies are not there yet? Because in terms of technology, the technology is already there, right? It's a lot of new AI things showing up every day. Real-time information is something that software can do. Why you think that the companies are not so empowered by these technologies already?
It's typical because of four reasons. And I'll talk with each one of them. So the first thing is strategy. Most companies don't have a digital strategy. If you go to any CEO of any company and ask him, what's your digital strategy? You will have one of two reactions, either a blank face or they will ask you to talk to the CIO. So if you don't have a strategy, you don't know where you're going. You're just going where the wind is blowing, which most often is blowing with whatever partner is trying to sell his or her solution. Okay, so digital strategy is fundamental for any company to be able to survive in this area. The second one you already mentioned is technology. There are way too many different technology solutions in the market. Many of them are just monoliths that are very, very closed solutions. They cannot work well with other players. And to be honest, for digital transformation, the scope is so large. Then to have one single company saying that they can do it all is just unrealistic. They won't be able to. So the technology solution, the technology architecture and solutions that you put in place are very important and can either hinder you by bringing technical debt and making things harder to scale or making things easier. Technology is crucially important, but it's very tied in with the partners that you choose to help you. Most companies cannot do digital transformation by themselves. They will need partners. They will need other companies to help them. Now, if you choose the wrong ones, very rapidly, you will find yourself put in a corner with a solution that is like a monolith, like I've mentioned before, which is very expensive and very inflexible. Then what happens is, especially in companies, complex companies, industrial companies, where the technology stack is much more complex because you have factories, you have industrial facilities with all kinds of IoT, all kinds of SCADA systems, MES, etc. And you have money to do that in one factory or one facility or one business. But when you want to scale it to other lines of business, to other countries, to other factories, then if your solution is not scalable, if it's too expensive to scale, you're just stuck in the mud and you cannot advance. It's too expensive and you will lose it. Now, these three are the main ones, the main reasons why, in my opinion, companies fail: strategy, technology, partners. There's another one, which is also something that usually is a pitfall, which is politics. Digital transformation touches everything. That means that in some companies, it means that you will have wars and political wars between IT, between the digital team, between the lines of business, whoever wants to take because they think it's a power grab, if you like. That's also very common, especially in big organizations, where organizations tend to steal because then the CEO just sees people screaming with each other and not having a single vision of where to go. That's why strategy is so important, because then you can start understanding where you should go and trying to limit the political element out of it, which is very real, very, very common.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. So we in HR or even on LinkedIn, we are always talking about the culture of the company. And I think the politics starts really on the culture that the company has. And if a company doesn't have a strategy behind to support the culture they are trying to create, that will come with more politics, and then will become harder to choose the right technologies and the right partners, because instead of trying to go in the same direction, we are trying to fight each other internally, and we already have so many competitors that the focus it's not on the right place. So I think
the other aspect that might be able to highlight is that a lot of people rightfully say that digital transformation is mostly about people. It is true, but it is true for anything in a company. Companies are about people. So I don't want to disagree with that statement, but I do think that technology is important. The choices that we make in technology can hinder us or help us then in terms of bringing people to the digital transformation, because in the end, it is about people. It is about empowering people with the right tools at the right time for the right purpose.
Okay. And how you do that?
Well, the way that you do that in companies, it will depend on the type of company. Yeah, it's very different when I'm in a pure technology company like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, etc., than a company which has a very, very traditional business, or a startup for that matter. On a company like ours, which is a traditional business, which most companies are, the ones that want to do digital transformation, they will need to have a hybrid approach in regards to people. That means that they will need to hire some new profiles for the team, for sure. You will need to bring new skills into the company, but you won't be able to hire yourself out of trouble. You won't be able to just bring new people like a tsunami that is going to transform the company. That doesn't happen, because there's a lot of knowledge in the company, whatever company there is, within the business, that you need to leverage for the digital transformation. So you need to bring some new blood, but you need also to bring people to the digital area, basically empowering them to be able to be part of the projects, to lead some of the projects, to train them in terms of the skills that they're missing, but also to leverage the skills that they have. It's about building digital transformation from bottom up instead of top to bottom. That means that it's bringing people that are working in a factory to digital projects, training them, but also leveraging their knowledge, their operational knowledge, which is going to be fundamental for us to be able to implement a solution in a factory, for example. So it's kind of what is the right balance for you in terms of bringing new knowledge in that you need, scaling up the knowledge that you already have, and betting on people that are already in the company, doing different things, but leveraging their knowledge.
Okay, that's a very good point, because usually companies start, okay, let's hire outside, so we need to bring the knowledge in, but we already have a lot of knowledge in that we are not taking the full potential of it. And I think it's also a very good opportunity for the people that are already inside to learn something new and to get motivated, and probably they can give even more if they have the right tools and the right strategy behind it. So I think that's a very important point that I don't see a lot of companies doing it, because the first step is always going outside to bring the knowledge in.
It's bringing some new consultant or some new guy that came from Silicon Valley. They will bring some new knowledge, which is useful for sure, but don't neglect your frontline workers. Because to be honest, in my experience, if you talk and if you include your frontline workers being in a factory or in a retail station, whatever, frontline workers, they will know what are the main problems we need to solve. They don't have the power to solve them right now, but they know what those problems are, and they will have a few good clues on how to solve them. So if you lose that knowledge, then you're hindering yourself.
Yeah, one more time, it's all about people, and we need to start with the internal people first. Do you think there is, like, besides this aspect that we just spoke about, promoting the internal talent, there is any other big mistakes that companies usually do regarding digital transformation?
I do think there are a few more mistakes. So for instance, one of them is doing things half-hearted. You want to take advantage of your current knowledge of people that you have in the company. But let's not kid ourselves. To be able to deliver on digital transformation, you need to do things differently. That means companies that never did agile will need to do so. That means that companies that never saw how you do product management, they will need to do so. So that means they will need to do things differently. They won't be able to just put some new app or a new software and do things like they used to do before. The way that companies operate is going to be different. It's going to be a lot more data focused, a lot more technology centric in some aspects. It's working in a different way. And companies will need to start realizing that. It's very easy to say, oh, we will bring a CDO and 4 or 5 consultants and we will do the digital transformation and that's it. And we can do things like before. Unfortunately, that's not true. That's not true. And by the way, a digital transformation is not made in 6 months or 1 year. It typically takes 3 to 5 years. It's also the other mistake that companies do is that they treat it like a project. We will bring someone, a consultant or something, a project, and we will be digitally transforming the end of that project. That doesn't work. Digital transformation is a strategy, it's not a project. And if you deal with it like a project, you will most likely fail. You will do 1 or 2 pilots and that's it. It will need to have a more longer term view because it will influence everything, the way that you operate today, but also the offerings and the products and the value that you bring to the market in the future. It will change everything.
Yeah, it's related with mindset. We are always looking for results for this year, especially companies that are, for example, on the stock markets. They need to keep growing, and sometimes it's hard to have a 5 years vision for our digital components.
So that doesn't mean that the benefits is only going to come after 5 years. That's not what I mean. You will have benefits if you do things properly. You will have benefits after 6 months, 1 year, depending on the problems that you have to solve. But for you to reach that stage that I've talked about before, in terms of having the real-time state of your business and the future state of your business, it will take 3 to 5 years.
What do you think there are like short wins that companies can have to really leverage that motivation in a long-term component of the digital strategy? So what they can do like this year or in the next 6 months to gain energy to continue to fight that battle for longer?
My advice would be define your digital strategy first. It's not sexy. And also, the digital strategy doesn't need to be a 100-page PowerPoint. That's useless. Mm-hmm. It needs to be something that you can communicate to your bottom line, to your frontline workers. They understand and they can buy. But it needs to be clear, needs to be comprehensive, needs to be specific to your business. It needs to align with your business strategy. That's the first step. If you don't do that, if you just go into solution mode, into projects, you will do 1 or 2 things that you will get some return, that's fine, but you won't be able to reach that state that I've mentioned.
Yeah, no, makes total sense. And I think we could speak about digital transformation for hours now with what you just mentioned, but I think we need to keep some secrets still so people can ask you advice in the future, Ricardo, just because we already... Yeah, no secrets. So we are half an hour in. I would like to come back to the topic of working abroad since we had one question and I also have a question about it. So the question from our people that are attending, it's to understand your perspective of what is the main motivation right now for Portuguese to leave Portugal and working abroad. I think we talk a lot about money, right? That taxes are sometimes better outside. But do you see other motivations that people are having to leave the country right now?
Look, I'm not as young as I was before, so I cannot put myself in the young people's shoes right now. I do understand that right now it's much easier to go abroad, much easier than when I went. When I wanted to find my first place in London, I needed to go to a newspaper. There were no internet house boards, or there was nothing like that. So now it's much easier. It's so easy that you can even stay here and work for abroad in many cases. So the salary aspect, I do understand as a major factor. I mean, people here in Portugal, they cannot even rent a house in Lisbon with the current salaries that some of them are earning. So I do understand that. What I would say, though, is if you have the need and the motivation to go abroad, try to look for something that you can learn from. Don't go for the salary only. But have a more longer-term view. Sometimes not earning a bigger salary means that you will learn more. And I would definitely value that more in the beginning of a career than the salary by itself. Now, going abroad has its own perks. You will earn more money. you'll have different experiences, but you also will have difficulties, and be ready for those if you like. I think right now there are more opportunities in Portugal than there were when I was 20. The salary is probably not what you like, but there are many companies here in Portugal where you can still learn as much as in a foreign country. So it depends on what you want for yourself and what you want to balance. Different people, different motivations. My advice would be, don't look at the salary only.
So it depends a lot on the area that you are in. So, for example, we are much more close to technology, and I think the scope of opportunities between Portugal and other countries in Europe is not that different. Sometimes even the salaries, you can have good salaries here in Portugal, but sometimes you can work in very different projects abroad and here, and vice versa. For other areas, sometimes it's not totally true. It depends on the field. Do you have any other recommendations for people that are finishing their studies that would like to go abroad? If they would ask you if you have any tips, do you have anything else to share with them?
Yes. So first thing, if you do want to go abroad, be careful what you choose. There are going to be many, many choices for you, especially if you're patient. If you don't want something in the next month or so, there's going to be many options for sure. Choose the company or the organization that you think you're going to be able to learn more. Be careful with that. But most importantly, when you get interviews, interview yourself, your future boss. That's the most important choice you're going to make. It's more important than the company. Your direct line manager is going to have a profound influence in making your life worth it or miserable, in making you learn more or learning nothing. Make sure that you interview your boss appropriately. Make sure you understand if he or she is interested in developing people, if he or she is someone that you can learn from, whatever it is. Sometimes it's not technically. Sometimes you might want to learn from your manager the way that he's managing people. And you can have a good feel once you get that interview. Make sure that you understand that if you're going to get a manager which is only for himself, is selfish, just thinking about his own career, or if he's thinking about his team and how to develop the team. I think the choice of your boss, especially in the first few years, is crucial for the learning opportunities and the experience you're going to have. The other thing that I would say is try to find something that challenges you, that you feel uncomfortable with. Get out of your comfort zone. You're going to go abroad, so you might just as well getting out of your comfort zone so you can develop even further. So sometimes you will find a job, but I don't know if I can do that. That's a good sign that you probably should take the challenge.
That's the one. Go all in. But I really like the advice that you gave. Choosing your manager, especially I think on the first 2-3 years of your career, will be very, very different if you have a manager that supports your growth, that's with you, instead of having someone that doesn't care so much. I think that really has a big impact, and it's something that if you leave university is not the first thing that you remember to evaluate. Usually we are much more trying to know the brand, etc. We're saying
one other thing, a small detail, which is becoming more important now. So you will also find a lot of reviews about whatever company you're researching. Yeah, you can go to Glassdoor, all different types of review websites. Be careful with those. Most people that write reviews there, it's because they're not happy with the company. So you will have loads and loads of criticism, but you won't have the people that are happy there. So take that with a grain of salt. What I would recommend is do try to search on your LinkedIn network or more extended network people that are working for the company. Contact them. Even if you don't know them, just ask them, can you give me a view of how you feel about the company? People will generally tell you the truth, even if politely. So if you are unsure about the company, try to do your homework. Try to talk with people. People are humans. They will have the same fragilities and fears that you do. And they will be happy to tell you what they think about the company. So don't guide yourself only for comments that you see online.
Good one, because usually if you have an average experience, probably you won't rate the company, only if you have a very bad one or a very good experience. So sometimes it's a good support to start your research, but shouldn't be the only one. I think I at least already learned a lot with Ricardo. We are coming almost to the end of our session. So if you guys have questions on that side, please feel free to shoot them in the chat. I have 3 more questions that I want to make to all our guests. It's a bit more personal to know Ricardo a little bit better. Some questions might be, I don't know, a bit tricky, a bit different. Let me know also on that side if you like the questions or not. but I would like to know, Ricardo, what annoys you on other people?
Oh, that's a simple one. I don't like people with lack of ethics, and I don't like pure self-interest and selfishness.
And how you deal with those people when you found them?
I mean, different situations, different strategies. Most of the times, try to stay away from them, but sometimes it's not possible. So you do need to be a bit more careful with those people, and also don't expect what you can't expect. If you meet someone which is self-interest and selfish, don't expect them to change because of you. They won't. They will be what they will be. So you just need to manage around that. If you don't have any other option, my advice would be stay away.
You can change yourself, but you can change others, for sure.
After you reach 18 years old, I'm very skeptical of people changing.
And talking about people, one more time, what is the person, dead or alive, that if you could have a lunch with, would you take it?
That's a good one. I could tell you that I would like to have lunch with Elon or with Plato or with Churchill, or a bit more strange selections like Toshihiko Koga, which is my idol in judo. But to be truth, if I had the choice, I would choose my granddad. I would have lunch with my granddad.
Yes, family first.
It's not only family first, it's because I have had loads and loads of lunches with him, and they were always wonderful, and I miss him.
I feel you, Ricardo. I think, yeah, will be really nice at least to have one last one that we know that is the last, but we don't control that, and we need to move forward. And changing a bit the topics to not getting too sentimental in the end of the life. So, if you could give any advice to your 8-in-world self, what will be?
That's easy as well. Look, first thing, life is too short. So if at Sunday night you are dreading to go to work on Monday, if that happens, just move. Just try to do something else. So that's the first one. Sometimes we take it for far too long when we shouldn't. The other thing would be, I would tell to myself, relax, don't worry so much. You can do it and you will figure it out.
One day at a time, we can make it. Thanks a lot for sharing. We have a question from Carolina. If you can tell us some examples of questions that we should make in a job interview to evaluate our managers.
So typically what I would do is I would try to ask the manager some examples of people that worked for him and then went on to do bigger things. Everyone can answer that, but if you ask for details, if they don't have the details, they're not telling you the truth. So the other aspect is I will ask for the manager's values. What are your values, your personal ones? If the only thing that they can shoot at you is that they like to be truthful, they like to be truth, they like to be honest. If they don't give you anything that you feel that is real, then be careful. So those two things are good starts. There's more, but those are good starts. Ask for the values, ask for examples of things that have happened with this team. And ask him as well, what are his priorities? That's probably what you should ask first, because if within his priorities is just, I want to increase bottom line, I want to be innovative, and if he doesn't mention, I want to develop my team, then that's also not a good sign.
Yeah, agree. And I think asking for examples is really key because we all know the cliches, right? I want a great team, I want trust, I want transparency, these kind of things, but then bring examples in. I think it's very important for you to feel if what they are sharing it's really the truth or if it's just something, they are just telling because they saw a video about it. Anything to add, Ricardo? Any last words? How people can find about you? How they can follow a little bit more about your work? Do you have any social media activity, or people need to really to search deep to find you?
I mean, I don't do much on social media, to be honest. I'm mostly on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. I'm not sure I'm worth it for you to find me either, so I'm doing my job and that's basically what it is. I'm contactable, so if you need some advice from me, just send me a message on LinkedIn. That's easy enough. I don't do much Twitter or anything like that. No, it's not Twitter anymore. It's X. I don't do Instagram. I'm older. So yeah, if you want to find me on LinkedIn. I think if you want to find what I'm doing, just follow up a bit of what we're doing in Secil whenever you can. We will try to be also more open with what we're doing. I think we are doing something different in terms of industry here in Portugal, something ambitious, something real as well. It's not only PowerPoints. We're doing things in our company, really on our operations, in our factories, in our concrete business, in everything. So that should be interesting as well. But yeah, that's kind of how you find me. My name is not easy to find because it's too common. When I was abroad, that was easier. There was typically only one Ricardo. Ricardo Carvalho here in Portugal is very, very, very common. So you will have a bit of a harder time finding me, but I'm sure you will.
Yeah, but if you join this LinkedIn Live, you can find Ricardo pretty easily. I disagree with Ricardo because I think Ricardo has a lot of things to share, and I learned a lot from him so far, and I hope that I can continue to learn from him. So give him a follow, and if you have a question, I think Ricardo is also very approachable on that scenario. I wasn't planning to talk about this, but since you touched on the topic, I think Secil is doing a lot of interesting stuff. We're actually supporting Secil right now at Hiire to find a product owner for the logistic area. So if you are a product owner, or if you know any of them that is looking for a new challenge, just reach out. I think it was a good opportunity for us to advertise a little bit our vacancy, Ricardo. But I want to thanks everyone to join us today. Also, thanks a lot, Ricardo, for joining. I think it was super useful. And next time, I think I need to plan more time to speak with you about these topics. And once again, we will keep these talks. So the next one will be probably on the 25th of September with also an amazing guest. So keep following our content. We will announce it next week. And if we can help you anyways, just reach out. I think both me and Ricardo, we are very available to speak with you if we can help with any topic. And I really hope that you have an amazing weekend and that we can see each other again really soon. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.